Public hearing of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Public Works into the Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water Southern Ocean Research Aquarium. In accordance with the committee's resolution, this hearing will be broadcast on the Parliament's website, and the proof and official transcripts of proceedings will be published on the Parliament's website. I also remind members of the media who may be present or listening on the web of the need to fairly and accurately report the proceedings of the committee. My name is Graham Perrott. I'm coming to you from the southern suburbs of Brisbane, and I'll just stay in Queensland and go to the Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Andrew Wilcox, member for Dawson. I'm coming to you from central Queensland on the coast.
And then to the Gold Coast. Sorry, I remember that. To New South Wales. Maria, are you frozen or very still?
Can't see her.
All right, we might come back. We might come back to Senator Kovacic. We'll go to the ACT.
Dave Smith, federal member for Bean in the ACT.
Tony Zappia, federal member for Macon from South Australia.
And then to the Golden West. I can see that we have Ms Roberts online, but we'll continue. So I now welcome representatives from the Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water to give evidence. For the Hansard record, would you please each state your full name and the capacity in which you appear?
Thank you, Chair. Philip Boxall, Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water, Branch Head of the Assets and Technology Branch within the Australian Antarctic Division.
Rob King, Krill Research Systems Manager from the same organisation.
Andrew Thompson, Krill Aquarium Project Manager.
David Marshall, Project Finance Specialist.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Mr Marshall. Although the committee does not require you to give evidence under oath, I should advise you that these hearings are formal proceedings of the Parliament. Consequently, they warrant the same respect as proceedings of the Parliament itself. Giving false or misleading evidence is a serious matter and may be regarded as contempt of Parliament. Mr Boxall, would you care to make some brief introductory remarks before we proceed to questions?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all First Nations people and their culture and to their elders past and present. Members of the Standing Committee on Public Works, it is my privilege to present to you an exciting and transformative project that will ensure Australia maintains influence in the global policy and resource management of the Southern Ocean. The construction of the Southern Ocean Research Aquarium will provide a world-class facility for scientists to undertake research critical to understanding the capacity of the Southern Ocean and Antarctic ecosystems to cope with the changing environment and impacts to the organisms that inhabit and rely on this increasingly important ecosystem. The need to build a new aquarium was identified in the Australian Antarctic Strategy and 20-year action plan. The Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water, through the Australian Antarctic Division, is responsible for leading, coordinating and delivering the Australian Antarctic Program and administering the Australian Antarctic Territory and the territory of Heard Island and McDonald Islands in the sub-Antarctic. Findings derived from research undertaken directly or supported by the AAD serve to inform the Commission for the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources through the Antarctic Treaty. Much of the research needed on Antarctic krill to support Southern Ocean conservation and management can only be performed on living krill within a specialised research aquarium. This requires seawater systems to be kept between -1.5 and half a degree Celsius. Australia has been a leader in krill science since the 1980s, and the Australian Antarctic Division is recognised as the world leader in live krill research, operating one of the only Antarctic krill aquarium research facilities in the world. The Southern Ocean Research Aquarium aims to build on the success of the Department's state-of-the-art research supply vessel Noina, a vessel that has revolutionised the collection and transportation of live marine specimens from the Southern Ocean. Equipped with an innovative wet well system, the cutting-edge technology allows samples to be captured simply and in near pristine condition while underway, providing researchers with access to healthy specimens, including species previously considered challenging to capture. Previously, mid-water trawl nets have been used to capture specimens, resulting in suboptimal samples and requiring dedicated ship time. On board, specimens are housed in specialised containerised aquaria before being transferred to the department's existing research aquarium. However, the current facility lacks the necessary research space and infrastructure to accommodate the increased volume of specimens, including the ability to support containerised aquaria efficiently. The Australian Antarctic Division current krill research aquarium, located at the Division's headquarters in Kingston, Tasmania, has been in continuous operation for 23 years and is now approaching the end of its operational lifespan. Due to the limited space and the inability to expand within its current location, the facility has been operating at full capacity for several years. The existing aquarium requires close management of workplace health and safety risks, particularly those associated with confined spaces, which has been a key consideration as a significant portion of the recirculating aquaculture system was constructed in a subfloor arrangement due to space constraints. Additionally, recent revisions to the Australian Biosecurity Framework has required the application for an operational exemption until 2029, as the current facility is unable to meet the updated standards. It is important to highlight that, despite these challenges, the facility has enabled scientists to conduct pioneering research on Antarctic krill through all stages of life, providing invaluable insights into the impacts of climate change and ocean acidification. The Southern Ocean Research Aquarium will provide a contemporary cold water research facility capable of maintaining specimens year-round. The scope of works include the internal fit-out of the cold shell with 18 research laboratories, associated plant and equipment rooms, specialised research spaces, staff offices and seawater process services. The design of the facility will incorporate several first-generation elements, including a sea ice research freezer, temperature-controlled deep tank, and integration of containerised aquaria to aid in delivery and offloading of live specimens. The estimated cost of the fit-out is $24.2 million, which is budgeted. The Southern Ocean Research Aquaria will be collated on the University of Tasmania's Institute of Marine and Antarctic Studies site. The university is currently constructing the Southern Ocean Research Aquaria cold shell as part of a larger site redevelopment due for completion in May 2026. An agreement for lease between parties was executed in late 2024, providing the department with access to the site and key existing infrastructure for a period of up to 30 years. The site, located on the Doohan Estuary, is geographically close to the home port of RSV Nuina and the Australian Antarctic Division's headquarters, and has numerous favourable attributes, including existing seawater intake facilities, environmental and regulatory permits, and proven seawater sterilisation processes. Whilst the Southern Ocean Research Aquaria will operate independently from the university, the co-location will aid to foster research and technical collaborations. Historically, the limited capacity of the current Australian Antarctic Division's aquaria has required researchers to concentrate exclusively on the study of Antarctic krill. However, with the increased capacity within research supply vessel RSV Nuina to collect and the new aquarium's increased capacity to maintain, researchers will be able to expand the scope of their studies to include additional and previously unresearched species. These elements will assist in facilitating the best science and will also position Australia as the authority in this field, shaping international standards, policies and influence. Subject to parliamentary approval, the fit-out of the facility will commence in May 2026, with an 18-month build time projected. We look forward to answering any questions that the committee may have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr Boxall, and thank you for the great presentation. And I do acknowledge certainly some members of the committee have been for an inspection, not of the UTAS site, but of the current facilities. It's been very impressive. And I think from memory, we saw the wet well before it went onto the ship. Would that be right?
I believe we showed you certainly a prototype, Chair.
Yeah. So it's great to see that it's it's operating well out at sea on Nuyina, is it? How do we say it?
Noyina.
Noyina. What does that mean?
It's Aboriginal for Southern Lights, I believe, in southern Tasmania. There was, correct. There was two schools, both suggested it.
Now, Ms Roberts is online as well, just so if you're not quite seeing it, that's the number you might be able to see. My question is, why are we wasting all our taxpayers' money on studying krill?
I can answer that question. You're not. You are not wasting it at all. In fact, you might be wondering why you're not spending enough. And that's because Antarctic krill are an absolute critical keystone species in the Southern Ocean. Much of the charismatic megafauna, the large animals in the Southern Ocean, rely on krill being there in vast numbers at certain times of the year to complete their reproductive cycle. And to get a concept of how important they are, if you look at the biomass of all animal life on Earth, so that is the weight in terms of carbon of all animals alive on Earth today, this single species, Euphorsia superba, represents 1/40th of that mass. No other species comes close in terms of the wild animal species, and they are only eclipsed by humans. So it is critical to understand the krill ecosystem and krill themselves. We need to focus our attention on the fact that humans have a krill fishery in the Southern Ocean. It's around 450,000 tonnes and growing per annum. And this represents a little over 1% of the krill biomass, around 400 million tonnes. So it's a very well managed fishery, managed by CAMLR under the Antarctic Treaty, and it's managed to ensure we don't remove a significant amount of krill from any one area to ensure we don't cause a reproductive failure in vertebrate predators that are breeding in that area. So that's one area that is critical in fisheries management, but we also need to conserve the biodiversity of the Southern Ocean, because we have to think of this the way CAMLR thinks of this fisheries management, which is ecosystem management. Krill are not just a resource for humans to use, they are providing a range of services across the environment, and making sure that the krill population does not change significantly is the best way to ensure the survival of the great whales that rely on them and the other species all the way through the ecosystem that are all in some way connected to Antarctic krill. And all of this at a time of tremendous environmental change in the Southern Ocean, with dramatic sea ice loss, which is larval habitat for krill, temperatures rising, and ocean acidification caused by anthropogenic emissions. All of this adds up to a lot of factors to take into account when formulating policy to manage sustainable fisheries in the Southern Ocean and to conserve the biodiversity.
Thank you, Mr King. And I might go to the Deputy Chair, who has his own marine research facility in his electorate.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for mentioning AIMS. Gentlemen, thank you for your presentation. Could you just explain how Australia is placed compared to the rest of the world with Antarctic krill research?
Yes, Australia can say that we are the leaders in the world in Antarctic krill research. At a symposium of live krill experts in St Andrews some years ago, this was pointed out by other nations at the symposium that Australia is the lead player, and the work we have done in the Southern Ocean Aquarium we currently run in Kingston has been much appreciated. And we have many more requests for international researchers to come and utilise our research facility than we can possibly accommodate. And this is one of the key reasons that we need to increase our facility footprint to be able to welcome research that meets the Australian Government's strategic plan for science that can answer some of these big questions that affect the biology of krill and, of course, the ecosystem they support. So we are the world leaders, and we look to help other nations around the world also perform this research.
And if I can please, Deputy Chair, We mentioned in the previous meeting that this is the largest facility in the world. There's only one other facility, which is in Japan, which has the capacity and the ability to undertake krill research, Antarctic krill research.
Thank you. What would be the risk if we didn't do anything?
If we didn't do anything, then we wouldn't know what was going to happen. And I would say that we still don't know what's going to happen because we are collecting data to inform models, and there's always risk with models. But models that tell you what's going to happen in the future are only as good as the data you put into them. So the best data comes from research aquaria that are well established, are staffed well with scientists that are at the top of their game, and that cross-reference with other research organisations to ensure they have the best technology and the best science going on. And we've worked with institutions such as AIMS in the formulation of this aquarium because we have a close relationship with that organisation, and that in Australia is the most recent state-of-the-art aquarium constructed.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Deputy Chair. To Senator Kovacic.
Thank you. The submission talks about, this aquarium will help develop scientific understanding of what's going on in terms of impacts to species and to the ocean from climate change and from acidification. Can you sort of give us some examples of the type of critical research that this would enable you to do?
Yes, so we've already begun research on the effects of warming ocean and ocean acidification on Antarctic krill. We've done that in our existing aquarium, but it is very difficult due to the tight confines of that space. So you need a certain amount of area just to breed Antarctic krill in the aquarium to produce the embryos to conduct that research on. To do that research in the Antarctic, you have to collect embryos that are spawned at the surface and are sinking to 1 kilometre deep to collect them at the point where they grow into krill larvae. So it is critical to do this work in the laboratory to make it even feasible to begin. The research we've done so far has shown that if you warm the water that krill embryos are developing, they don't hatch. And if you push carbon dioxide concentrations above what they are currently experiencing enough, they also won't hatch. And what we have done is modelled the amount of carbon dioxide we are projecting to put into the atmosphere under current emission scenarios by the end of the century, so the year 2100, and we have found that based on our laboratory experiments that krill hatch rates would drop in key spawning areas of the Southern Ocean by 15%. We also have the known losses of sea ice that are occurring now in the Southern Ocean. Sea ice is the nursery area for Antarctic krill larvae. And what this new aquarium facility is going to allow us to do is to bring all of this together. Because it is one thing in research science to test an individual parameter on an individual species, but it is quite another thing to bring all three pressures such as sea ice loss, temperature rise and acidification all to bear at once on a single animal species during a critical phase of its development. And that is what we'll be able to do with this aquarium. So it's really a step change in capability, not just for Antarctic krill, but for the other species we're now able to collect in perfect condition in the wet well. It's the subject of some developing fisheries in the Antarctic and some, the gelatinous plankton, that have never been studied in detail in live specimen form before because they're simply too difficult to catch without the right systems. And these are some of the species that may replace, by competition, Antarctic krill should conditions deteriorate sufficiently that they can no longer compete against them. And the problem with that, of course, is that these species may no longer support the megafauna of the Southern Ocean that are currently relying on Antarctic krill.
And I think you've answered my next question in advance, but in case there's anything further you wanted to add to that, which is, what are, in your view, the risks of delaying this project?
Well, there's a risk in terms of reputation, in that the Antarctic Treaty functions as an organisation where science is the currency of the Antarctic Treaty. So nations conducting science in the Antarctic is how you get a seat at the table there. Australia was a founding member of the Antarctic Treaty, so we have a permanent seat there. But it is good form to produce the very best science, which is what you're asking other nations to do when they join the organisation to have a role in consultative meetings. The risk, I guess, in terms of the ecosystem, so not so much in terms of reputation, is that I have never seen in my 30-year career a time where the ecosystem is changing as fast as it is now. It is absolutely stunning, the rate of change in the Antarctic, and we need to ensure the survival of this species, not just for the conservation of biodiversity, but because this fishery is also a key resource for humanity. That fishery is one of the few underexploited fisheries left on the earth, and exploiting that fishery in a way that does not damage the ecosystem is absolutely essential, so we don't remove the other capabilities that krill are delivering in terms of carbon sequestration and in conserving biodiversity. So there is no time like the present to be getting on top of these things, being able to make predictions based on good data to inform good policy by government and for injection into these international fora that will decide the fate of the Southern Ocean ecosystem.
Thank you. That's it from me, Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Smith?
Thanks, Chair. And a related question, and I think, Mr. King, you've communicated the urgency of this work pretty well. But could the new facilities' expanded research capabilities could they have been potentially taken out by expanding or refurbishing the existing site? And if not, could you possibly just step through why?
I can take it. So the reason we've had to change sites is largely due to the limitation of space in the existing site, in that there physically isn't anywhere to go. Also, it's the right time for that ageing aquarium infrastructure to be changed. But the key driver to go to a new site is that we have developed the world's foremost premier marine biological platform for live animal sampling in the RSV Noina. And we purposely fitted that with containerised research laboratories, which were bespoke, designed and built at the Australian Antarctic Division to enable us to transport animals that are living in water at below -1, for example, all the way back through waters up to 20 degrees as the vessel arrives in Hobart. That capability must have an interfacing aquarium to extend the research that can be done at sea. There is a certain amount of research you can do at sea, but it is far greater on a long-lived animal like an Antarctic krill, which typically can live for 5 to 7 years. You can conduct much research by being able to maintain them in a laboratory long term, and that is where we need to have an interfacing aquarium to those containers, and the logical place to put that aquarium is where there is existing seawater and an existing research community and sufficient space to accommodate that, and that is why we have principally chosen this course.
Thanks, Mr. King. Fine, Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Smith. Mr. Zapier?
Thank you, Chair. A couple of quick questions. One is, does the new site allow room for expansion should it be needed in the future? And secondly, the equipment that is being installed in the new site, is that coming from overseas or is it being designed and manufactured in Australia?
I'm happy. Thank you, Mr. Zapier. So in relation to the opportunity to expand, at this present time, we've negotiated an agreement for lease for the existing site. We haven't had any further discussions in regards to the requirement to expand further over the life of the project, for example, which may be 30 years. But there is other room available there that we could have a discussion with the University of Tasmania moving forward. In regards to the equipment, I'd like to hand over to Mr. Thompson, who can provide an update.
Thank you. The equipment will be, the majority of the equipment will be manufactured in Australia. Components that aren't available in Australia will be sourced from international companies. But the main driver for us when designing these modular filtration systems is to have easily available equipment that takes no more than 30 days to arrive on site, and the interchangeability between systems, items can be exchanged quite easily. So they can be used on various filtration skids. There'll be 24 within the facility.
And is ongoing maintenance then therefore able to be provided by I guess, entities that are based in Australia.
Yes, that's very correct. And there'll also be a smaller inventory of spares with the commonality of equipment.
Thank you.
So if I can add a little bit more, Mrs. Abbey, that's currently how we operate the existing Aquaria. So we've had 25, 30 years around about operating that. And we did mention before, we would work very, very closely with the Australian Institute of Marine Science, who have been fantastic in relation to information exchange and so forth. So we're both trying to ensure that both organisations do similar sort of management moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't think we have any other questions. So just confirming. All right, just give me 1 sec. Okay, thank you very much for your attendance here today and the wonderful presentation that we saw earlier. You'll be sent a copy of the transcript to make any corrections to the transcription, and I wish you well with your endeavours, the great research that you're doing, and I declare this public hearing closed.